Welcome to the conversation. I'm Paul Grondahl, the director of the New York State Writers Institute at the University at Albany. We're excited about our guest today, novelist Dennis Mahoney. His new novel, Ghostlove, just received a wonderful review in the New York Times Sunday Book Review this past Sunday. And welcome to the conversation, Dennis.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, everybody.
So this is your third novel, and you've really been doing a lot of, it's a ghost story. I mean, the title suggests it's a boy whose mother's a librarian, and she has this friendship with this reclusive 90-year-old gentleman who's got this brownstone kind of haunted house. What drew you to that theme? You've been writing a lot in this occult sort of supernatural theme for a while.
When I came off my second book, the second book didn't perform as well as hoped. So I had spent a year working on a sequel, and it suddenly seemed like maybe not. And so I found myself between major projects, basically. To keep my writing arm in shape, I started blogging as this man who lived in Troy in a haunted house. And I just figured I would write 3 times a week and just do little updates about stuff that was happening to him. And he began to meet this ghost in his house, and I didn't know who it was. I mean, it was literally, I'd sit down at a cafe and just write for half an hour and do a little thing. I began to be curious about who this spirit was, as was the character William, and I basically got to know the two of them organically as it went. And at a certain point, stories and sub-stories just began to emerge, and they thinking day to day in this guy's head for 3 months. And it got to a point where I suddenly realized this is an interesting story. A lot of the occult and supernatural writing I was doing, I mean, I have an interest in horror. I have an interest in, studying these things anyway, especially occult faiths and practices. And I found that they were fictionally a really interesting window into very worldly concerns. Obviously, death, love, loneliness, depression, wonder, fear. A lot of the stuff that any novel would deal with. Somehow writing in a very fantastic genre allows me to be more honest and allows me to be a little braver with the choices of things I'm sharing, because they're, I don't know, it's like putting on a mask and then feeling more comfortable talking. Or I think the reader experience that I've encountered too is that your defense is lower when you think you're just watching an entertaining genre piece.
Right.
Somebody starts talking very intensely about loneliness or existential themes, and
Right.
I don't want to hear that. But if it happens to come out of a giant centipede story, right, you're not expecting it to get you. It's sort of like David Sedaris's essays, where you're laughing, and then somehow in those last couple of lines, he breaks your heart, and you don't know where it came from.
Right.
You never saw it coming, and the truth sneaks in that way.
Right. So your progression as a novelist, I know you wrote several unpublished novels. I think I had an interview with you at your home. I was looking back to 2015, and I think you said 7 or 8 unpublished novels. How did you keep going?
I lost track. I mean, I was sort of lazy in my 20s. I got into early blogging. I was probably second generation blogger. So this is late 90s. You could start a blog and have 1,000 followers by the end of the week, kind of thing. They still had the internet phone book. It was a printed version of every URL out there. You could get it at Barnes & Noble. So I did a lot of short form writing in my 20s. And then at a certain point in my late 20s, I realized I've got to just sit down and start really trying to write something significant. Hit a word count, hit an hour count every day. And that really changed everything for me. So, a number of practice novels, you can never treat them that way either. It's always got to be, you're trying to write the best thing ever.
Right.
It usually isn't in the first few. Some people I'm sure pull it off. But it was the third novel that I had really tried on that ended up being my quote unquote first novel.
Fellow Mortals, which is suburban. There's a fire. There's a it's more traditional. I wouldn't call it a cult or
no. No, my career has been a total screwball. I'd say the first one was literary. The second one was a semi-mystical,
right,
historical mystery adventure. Right. We could never figure out the genre on Bellweather. And then I landed on this occult genre, and it's been 3 years, and I don't see this running out of steam anytime soon. I'm having a lot of fun because I did a podcast as well, a fiction podcast, So I've got 21 episodes of that, and it's the character from Ghostlove and then 3 others. There's Claire, Amanda, and Hank.
Right.
So it's like a little mini Twilight Zone, 20 minutes long. I was doing them once every 2 weeks.
Huh.
I'll probably do season 2 soon.
So let's talk about you've also sort of figured out what works in terms of using social media and traditional publishing. So your second novel, Bellweather, I thought it was your breakout novel. It was incredible, beautiful writing, takes place in the 18th century. And I think at the time you told me it was going to be like a 5-part series.
Yeah.
But then you kind of shifted and you've gone into creating this online Equinox Society. Can you talk about it? It's sort of an online thing, you know?
It was the first time I could see myself bringing everything in my life under some kind of artistic umbrella. And so it just felt truer to me. You know, I'm like a goth 80s music fan. Like I tend to gravitate towards a lot of things that suddenly seem to fit this world.
Right.
And I thought, why not you could start expressing that and using that as a broader project. It was things like I missed getting actual mail, like paper mail, like a letter.
Right.
And so I started to send followers free mail. I would send them just pieces of scrap art I did or little stories I was doing, you know, strange occult questionnaires. I would just print them out. And it all sort of had like a crappy DIY punk look to it. You know, I was drawing a lot of inspiration from the early punk zines and the DIY scene in like late 70s England.
Right.
So, you know, going back to the Smiths and, you know, all of that.
Yeah, you quote the Smiths in this novel. The reviewer picked up on that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of energy. I guess I was just tired of trying to work in the big system. And I was noticing, I'll give 2 examples. One is Welcome to Night Vale. I had never heard of it before. This was 4 years ago or something. By the time I heard of it, it was the #1 podcast in the world. And they were selling out the egg. They were on a road trip. It was just 4 or 5 people in a van. They had almost nothing on stage. It was basically a spoken word performance.
Right.
So we take our son to the egg, and you know, every 3rd person there had purple hair because that's the Night Vale color.
Right.
And my jaw really hit the floor, thinking like I wasn't aware of this in popular culture, but they have a cult audience that's responding to this. It's meaningful to them, and they're making a living, and everybody's happy.
Right.
Basically, you don't need to be Game of Thrones. You just need to find your people.
Right.
And I was still kind of trying to find the blockbuster audience. And I just thought, you know, I'm done. Like, I don't really want to do that. I just want to do something very pure and very direct and see who shows up.
Right.
You see TV networks doing that quite a bit. They're curating their viewers. So Twin Peaks: The Return comes back. It's not as big as it was in the 90s, but it didn't matter because Showtime got 250,000 subscribers for the summer, and it was fantastic.
Mm. So
you'd hit that little specific audience and then love them, like really have a relationship. So I started sending paper mail. I answer every email. I try to interact as much as I can. You know, if it gets really popular, there's a point at which you can't do that.
Right.
There's just no time.
Right. That's cool. I mean, that's what all writers, they want, a direct connection. I mean, you want to be able to correspond with your readers and share things. So who are the authors that kind of inspired you? All I can think of is like Stephen King in this genre. He would be the big name, but who else in this genre? And it's one that I don't really know, you know.
I've always been a weird guy in that most of my best inspiration comes from different arts. So I will be more inspired by music or David Lynch or film, physical art. There's all kinds of stuff that excites me more than, say, sitting down and just voraciously reading horror genre.
Right.
I've read a lot of nonfiction occult book too, you know, tons of stuff on witchcraft and just the history of all the, you know, Aleister Crowley and all of these people. The amount of material there to play with and to really find meaning in is incredible.
Right.
So yeah, it's less a direct pursuit of horror fiction and more just whatever is feeding me, and then I regurgitate it out somehow. You know, I've gotten more into, you know, physical art again and, you know, visual art, kind of anything, trying to turn the whole thing into a high school playground again.
Right. Seems like you're happier, you know, chasing something that wasn't really making you happy? You seem much more, this seems like it's really, personally, creatively satisfying in a way.
Yeah. I learned how to do podcasting. I've never done audio performance before, so suddenly I'm reading my stuff, and that always panicked me. I almost fainted at 2 readings in previous books. So I'm suddenly doing audio recording. I'm doing short form writing. I'm working on TV writing. I wrote a few scripts. Doing visual art. I'm doing like mini horror movies with scrap paper with my iPhone. They're 30 seconds long. They're just little tiny things, incredibly hard because it's like 150 words and you've got to have an arc.
Right.
But why not? It's sort of, I'll do that for the week because it's exciting and it's funny to me and it's interesting. And then sometimes it yields something good. Sometimes it yields junk and maybe I don't post it. Maybe I don't put it up. But the sense of play that I started to lose over the years was really bad.
Right. So it's have you made some good money? I mean, you got a major advance in things. Is it more freeing that you're not chasing, the next big contract, the money?
Yeah, completely. And it seems to be working. I mean, it's one of those things they say, if you're true to yourself, if you stop chasing the money, then the opportunities come. And so far they have. I'm certainly not rolling in money from Equinox Society, but I would say yet, in terms of attention and in terms of meaningful response, it's been mind-bogglingly different. I mean, I have, under my feet, I have something like 150 handwritten pieces of mail I've gotten from people.
Wow.
Just little exchanges. Again, I sent them some little thing. I sent them a patch you can iron on with the symbol. And, here's my symbol that I made up. I made a t-shirt because why not? It's not marketing so much as it's just fun.
Right.
But to get to the PO box and actually have mail from somebody in South Carolina, that's amazing to me. I never got that on the literary novel.
Right. So you've come a long way. I mean, when we talked about you were a lit major at the College of St. Rose, you called yourself a poseur. You were trying to be literary and very, do you look back on that and say this was so artificial, or was there something of value in that early kind of training? Or
there was. I mean, I wish I'd gotten to this point much sooner, because I think I was at this point in late high school and early college. That Wild West, anything goes, just have fun and just try stuff. Right. You get to a point where all of a sudden you're like, but I'm supposed to do a certain thing to get a certain editor. And it turns out it's largely a bunch of nonsense. Like, most editors don't want that writer.
Right.
They want the crazy maniac who's playing this stuff. They want somebody who's just trying things. That's more interesting.
Right. But mainstream publishing has obviously been struggling, like all media, trying to figure out this new world. So this book, we don't need to go into all the twists and turns, but this book sort of came through a different path. It was an audiobook first. Can you talk about Ghostlove and how it moved through the publishing world?
Yeah, really weird. So I started by blogging. Then I decided I'm gonna, really take my time and write it as a story. So I finished the novel. My agent at the time didn't connect with it, which killed me. I mean, I really thought I had this, person waiting to help it. And he was right in turning it down because he just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
He just didn't think he'd be the best advocate. So I thought at that point, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to look for another agent. I think I'm going to go indie like all my art heroes.
Right.
And I put it out as a podcast with a friend of mine named Sam. He was better at audio at the time. Still is, but I had nothing with audio. So he helped me produce this thing, and we put it out as an independent podcast. And then I thought, well, okay, I did it my way. That's great. Maybe somebody wants to publish the book. I found a new agent who was really excited. She got Audible interested. Audible re-recorded it. And then we found then my agent found the paperback publisher, IG. The whole thing, it was just weird. It's basically blog to book to rejection to indie to quote unquote traditional acceptance, but the whole thing is just, to think it would ever end up in the New York Times was.
It was great. And I'm going to read, it was a beautiful review by Paul Tremblay. And it's a kind of review every writer hopes to get. The closing says, The novel itself acts as his ultimate spell, with the price of success being the greatest unknown. Though there are moments of existential unease, Mahoney is not interested in the ghostly bumps and chills of a creaky old house. With its openly bleeding heart and philosopher's spirit, the odd and undeniably affecting Ghostlove explores ways in which we haunt ourselves. That's that's wonderful, man.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I felt like he read it with an amazing amount of care. He read it, quote unquote, the right way, which was good.
So you grew up in Lansingburgh, and when I interviewed you in 2005, you lived a little bit outside the Sickaway neighborhood, but now you're back in the heart of Troy. What's it feel like in Troy right now? Talk about how you've been weathering the pandemic and quarantining and all that.
Yeah, the pandemic, I was so glad to be downtown for that. House in the suburbs, it was a sleepy little neighborhood, great neighborhood, but I'd go crazy in the winter. You know, I don't like driving in the snow. So if it got a little snowy, I felt trapped. I knew I was trapped. So even to be in the pandemic, just to know there are people around psychologically, even if I'm not seeing them, it was great. But, you know, we have a great family. So we've got, my wife works from home. So it wasn't really a big adjustment for her. I work at home. Our son had the hardest time at first because he couldn't see any friends. He had just gotten a new girlfriend. He couldn't see her.
Right.
Yeah, they hit their 3-month anniversary a couple of days ago, and I think they've hung out for 2 weeks total, you know.
Right.
So it wasn't awful. I mean, in a way, we had hit a certain kind of work groove before the pandemic and just kind of kept at it.
Yeah.
It was great being around and just feeling like you could at least step outside, maybe see somebody you knew across the street when you were walking the dog and wave.
Right. I mean, Troy's really had a great resurgence, and it has such a wonderful feel to me downtown. And the protest last Sunday,
Yeah,
11,000 people. What was that like? Did they come right by your house, or were you part of it? And
they didn't come down. They didn't come down as far. We stopped at, it was Congress.
Right.
So yeah, so we absolutely went. We were down there. We brought Jack. It was amazing. I mean, things stayed pin drop peaceful. It was really great. A lot. I mean, obviously a lot of feeling. I won't say pin drop peaceful. It was loud and it was enthusiastic.
Right.
Yeah, I was really proud of how our city turned out for it. I mean, 11,000 is really an incredible number.
Right.
There was a point at which the march, I think, almost gridlocked itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it went so far that we were almost clipping the tail when we came around.
Right. Now, you grew up in Lansingburgh, and I mean, the city has certainly had its racial struggles. There's been incidents with Troy police and African-American men. There's been a period of violence in like central Troy. How do you, as somebody who's wanted to live there and keep your roots there, how do you sort of reconcile these challenging forces?
I'm out of my depth to answer that right now. I mean, I think this has been a big wake-up call for a lot of people in terms of their own accountability. And God knows, I haven't done enough. I don't know enough. Reading voraciously, I've done almost no writing of my own in weeks because it doesn't feel as important. You know, we'll get to a point where my own work will feel meaningful again in what it is. But it's a lot of education. It's a lot of listening. It's all the cliches that a white person like me is going to say at this point, but listening, doing everything I can, donating where I can.
Right.
I don't know exactly how to speak to this eloquently or intelligently because I do feel horribly ignorant and naive at this point.
One of your first trips, I know you love Marketblock Books, and I do too. Stanley Hadsell, who runs that, is just a wonderful person, a community person. You went down, you told me to Marketblock, and you found a copy of How to Be an Anti-Racist, which is hard to find.
Yeah.
Ibram Kendi, the author, he actually was a UAlbany professor.
Yes, I saw that. Right. Yeah. I read the bio in the back.
Trying to connect with him, but he's huge now. That book is selling out everywhere.
Yeah.
So talk about, you know, why you wanted that to be your first book purchase when you could get back to Marketblock Books.
It was, that was the one that kept coming up. it, for somebody who feels like, boy, go back to the beginning and start to really learn the fundamentals of how I'm thinking wrong about things, and I have not done enough. I mean, so much of the language that's being used right now is it's not enough.
Yeah.
Do not be racist. You have to aggressively be anti-racist. I don't mean aggressively like violently. Someone like me has to actually do something about it, as opposed to saying, well, I'm nice to people, and I don't agree with that policy. That's no longer an option, and it never should have been.
I feel the same way, but I imagine your upbringing, you were in a racially, ethnically mixed neighborhood, part of the city and things. No, I thought Lansingburgh was
not in Catholic school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, St. Augustine's and Catholic High. I mean, boy, I think I had 2 black classmates for the 12 years.
But certainly the city has always been fairly.
Yeah, Lansingburgh less so, at least back in the day. Back in the 80s, I mean, it felt really white.
Okay.
I mean, it didn't even, it doesn't occur to me at 5 or 6 or 8 or 10.
Right.
College is where my eyes opened a bit, but even then, college, predominantly white. So.
Yeah. How about in this genre and through the Equinox Society? Does it draw a diverse audience, or are they mostly white kids? You mentioned going to that podcast show and stuff. Was that a racially diverse audience, or?
Welcome to Night Vale seemed pretty white, but I honestly don't know. I'm not a great marketer. I mean, the best I can usually do is see, the tiny pixel of somebody who has talked to me on Instagram. I don't know. I know there is a lot of colored hair. I see a lot of green hair. I see a certain kind of, emo or alternative look. And it does seem to trend a little younger at this point.
Right.
Outside of that, I'm not sure. I really don't know. I don't really target anybody. The few times I've run ads on Instagram, it's usually likes, Stephen King likes, witchcraft, whatever.
Right. So do you think you're going to continue, mining this rich vein you've found? You're going to do a follow-up book in this kind of genre? And
yeah, I don't know about book. The thing I'm working on right now is it's a short audio drama, and I'll see if I can wrangle that together.
Yeah.
Something I'd like to see at Audible, but they're open to it. We'll see. So I want to finish that. I want to get back to the podcast, and then, like I said, I really started to fall in love with TV and screenwriting. So, once I figured out the software and figured out the logic, I mean, it's such a head shift off of novel writing.
Right. I mean, it seems a little bit like your subtext, and this has been, perennial issue over generations. Do you think the novel is dead? It sounds like, in a way, for you, it is.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. A lot of people bring that up, and I always struggle to imagine a period in history when the novel was a gigantic force, to be perfectly honest. Like, I don't know, what would the heyday of the novel truly be?
Right.
Like, if it was the 1950s, was the average guy sitting on the stoop really reading Thomas Pynchon? Was he,
You're right. It was a niche. It was,
Yeah. Or you get somebody like, a Dickens, who is huge, but he's in the paper and he's writing stuff that's basically Netflix.
Right.
And I don't mean that as a shot at Dickens. I'm saying he's writing stuff that's compulsive. It's great storytelling. It's really interesting,
Look at your Lansingburgh resident, Herman Melville. I mean, Moby Dick did nothing while he was alive. It was born. He died bitter and broke, more or less.
Yeah. I think we like story. Once you go pre-novel, which is only, 150, 200 years. I mean, I guess count Don Quixote or something, but it was plays, it was recitations of poems. You go way back, it's talking at a campfire. So podcast feels legitimate. Why wouldn't it? That somebody's telling you a story at a bar. If they know how to tell a story, that's important. It's going to be meaningful.
Right.
So I hate limiting myself, basically, at this point. And sometimes it feels like I want to write a long form fiction piece, and other times, why not try audio? Why not try screen? Why not try a little movie on my phone?
Right. Cool. Now, I'm trying to remember our mutual friend, CJ. I know that both of you worked at Barnes & Noble,
Yeah.
way back in the day. But is it right you both met your future wives there? Do I have that right? Tell me,
Yes.
tell me
I,
that story.
we're two, it was 5 or 6
Oh, really?
couples came out of that and are still together. It was one
Wow.
of those crews. Like every now and then one of those things comes along, but I think there are several, I want to say there's half a dozen long-term relationships.
Of the Wolf Road Barnes and Noble, then.
Yeah. If you go there, is it still Spirit Halloween every October?
I think it is. I don't know. That's a sad giant
Yeah.
box store. That's yeah.
So if you walk in the front door and you look through the partition, you can still see the old cafe mural,
Yeah.
with the others. That's exactly where I shook my wife's hand for the first time. So we were able to point it out to our son. We're like, there it is. Although he remembers me from being a shopper like a month earlier, and I don't. So
right.
it wasn't really where we met, apparently.
How long did you work there? Were you and CJ both like clerks or something, or what did you guys do? I'm trying to remember.
CJ, I can't remember. I was coffee guy. I worked in the Starbucks.
Okay.
And I wasn't there long. I was only there about 6 months, but then just stayed friends with that group. Nicole had been there longer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I miss a lot of that, there seemed to be an appetite for 2 large chain stores, and the independents like Susan Novotny were still going. Borders gone. Barnes and Noble seems to be just teetering. I don't know what they're going to do after this pandemic.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything about them.
Yeah.
With all the, in hindsight, the giant corporate stores hurting the little stores, and I'm completely with that. As a consumer back then in the 90s, what I really loved about Barnes and Noble was that it was such a giant place, and it was really where somebody who wasn't going to get smashed at a bar went on a Friday night.
Yeah.
There was a real indie alternative culture that showed up, even though it was a big box corporate store. But you'd go, you get your coffee, you'd read a magazine, you'd maybe buy a book or a CD, and maybe you met your future person. Like it happened a lot.
That's nice.
It was a social scene. I mean,
that's great.
Yeah, and it wasn't centered around alcohol. And that's one of those things that's frustrating.
Right.
You can't really go out and socialize terribly easy because there aren't a lot of, late night tea establishments, or, maybe you don't want coffee at midnight. But
I'm glad that the Barnes and Noble is still on the Colony Center side. I hope it's got life. My wife and I, and when our daughter and son are back and visiting and stuff, we often go in there. Same thing, like on a Friday night after we've got dinner or whatever. It's just a nice place to browse and, So what do you do for fun? You got a lot of creative outlets. Are you, I remember you used to work at the Snowman ice cream place. And you were like
7 years. Yeah. When I was 21, I realized I'd been at the Snowman a third of my life. It was, I'm still an ice cream snob. And when I see somebody do that soft serve wrong, I'm like, I know how to do that. For fun, I'm always watching something fun on television at night. I got into an exercise routine, and I got to say, believe it or not, I actually consider that fun. For one of the first times in my life, I took the advice of, if you're going to try to do an exercise regimen, pick something you like. It doesn't need to be the best thing. It just needs to be something you're actually going to do, a few times a week. So my wife and I have both been trying to, she's been in shape a lot longer than I have, but we do sprints in the morning sometimes, and I've been doing a lot of body weight workouts. Incredibly, I had been doing body weight and home workouts before the pandemic hit, so I was kind of ready to go. I had a pull-up bar that I was trying to defeat. I still am. I've made headway. I can actually do a few pull-ups now.
I'm impressed, man. Good for you.
You don't make progress fast.
You look lean and mean. I just had a birthday yesterday, turned 61. It's hard to keep the pounds off now, but I'm trying. I like to do a lot of activity, and gardening is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
People laugh. It's like, after I've done an afternoon of gardening, I am more sore and things than running or basketball or tennis or whatever.
Yeah, we did a deck repair at my parents' house, and you don't realize how many times you just do a little micro squat.
Yeah.
You come home the next day, you're like, oh, you didn't know that muscle existed in your body. I did just I built a bat house for the backyard. That was, that was a blast. That was fun.
So you have, I used to have some bats in old house we had in Albany that would just come in, but you're attracting bats to have them?
I hope. They haven't found it yet. It's only been up for a week. But it, it's 21 parts. The thing's really complex. It's got 4 chambers.
How do you attract them? How do they get attracted to come to that?
Apparently they find it.
Huh.
You're supposed to leave it and they're supposed to show up.
I would
Our
expect
neighbor has a koi
else.
pond, so I guess that's a plus. Like they want fresh water, the bats.
Right.
So the neighbor's koi pond might be perfect. It might bring.
I love that the Equinox Society and author of Ghostlove has a bat house. I mean, it's just perfect, man.
I know.
Anyway, it's been great to catch up, Dennis. I hope some point in person and you and me can meet somewhere for a coffee or beer or something. But before we end, I'm wondering if you could read just the beginning of. Do you have Ghostlove handy there? I mean, I love that opening.
I don't actually have Ghostlove. I think the copies are in the back room.
You can't get it up on your phone or anything? Sorry, I should have prepared you for that. But anyway,
let's see if there's. I don't have one. I might be able to get it on my phone.
We could do that. But I love the opening, and I thought your opening in Bellweather was one of the great openings in literature. The river scene just grabbed me.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is a great opening too.
Unfortunately, I can't find it right now.
That's all right, man. I put you on the spot. I could. I've got it here too. Anyway, for the next episode.
Yeah.
And then where should people go to find your podcast, to find your and if you can email me some links before we put this up, but where should people go to find your
the easiest thing to do is go to equinoxsociety.com.
Okay.
It's got every link to everything I do. If you Google Equinox Society, it should be, I think I have good SEO at this point. It looks like it owns the page. So it's pretty easy to find. Equinox Society on Instagram, Facebook. And then, the .com I update with the basic info, but there's not a live blog or anything.
Okay.
As far as the podcast, it's called Equinox Society Radio, and that's available on all podcast platforms. So it's on Apple, Spotify, whatever you want. Great.
Well, it's been good to talk with you, Dennis. You're doing some really cool things. You look like you're creatively fulfilled and really happy. And I hope you get a lot of bats in your bat house.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I'll see you in Troy sometime soon.
All right. Thanks.
Been speaking with Dennis Mahoney, novelist. His new novel, Ghostlove, has got a tremendous review in the New York Times book review this past Sunday. Thanks a lot, Dennis.
Thanks, Paul.